Welcome to the PlanetLaundry Podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we chat with Alex Smereczniak, the co-founder and CEO of the LaundroLab franchise and the 2U Laundry pickup and delivery service. Alex discusses his company's laundromat franchise concept, as well as the business's pickup and delivery model. He also shares his thoughts on recently being elected to the Coin Laundry Association's board of directors, along with what he thinks are some of the leading issues facing today's laundromat owners. The PlanetLaundry Podcast is brought to you by PlanetLaundry, the magazine of the Coin Laundry Association. This is the PlanetLaundry Podcast. My name is Bob Nieman, and I'm the editor of PlanetLaundry magazine. Today, I'm with Alex Smereczniak, the co-founder and CEO of LaundroLab and 2U Laundry. LaundroLab is a fast-growing laundromat franchise concept with several owners and investors already signed on. And 2U Laundry is the company's separate laundry pickup and delivery model. Coming off of this past summer's Clean Show, two of the most widely talked about developments in the industry have been franchising and residential pickup and delivery. And Alex, you're heavily involved with both of those. And I might add that you're also one of the newest members of the Coin Laundry Association's board of directors. So you're a busy guy. Hey, thanks for making time to be here today.
Of course, happy to be here. Clearly, I love the industry and can't stay away from it. So any opportunity to share what we're doing and learn from others, hopefully, give nuggets to others, always, game to do it.
Right. Well, hey, I'm thrilled to talk to you today about, especially about laundry franchising and where you see it standing today, as well as residential pickup and delivery, which has been obviously growing by leaps and bounds. But if you will, let's just take a step back, and if you could share some of the history and background of the company. I believe everything started around 2016 with 2U Laundry. So if you could just kind of begin there, and where does that story take us?
Yeah, no, I'd love to share. And actually, my soiree into laundry started in college for me. So even back to 2010. So I always get asked why laundry? How did you get into this? And so for me, it was college. Went to Wake Forest, Demon Deacons, and I worked a job my freshman year for a student-run laundry and dry cleaning delivery business, and I fell in love with it. I thought, hey, this could work at Duke, Chapel Hill, Vanderbilt, all these other schools. I want to buy it. And so I had $2,000, $3,000 saved up. I went to the owners and said, hey, I want to buy it. And they said, we're going to probably sell it for $30,000. My 19-year-old jaw hit the floor. Most money I'd ever heard of. And thankfully, I found two partners. We bought the business, ended up scaling it pretty tremendously at Wake, sold it. Everyone wanted to go do their big boy job and go do banking or marketing. And so we sold. I moved down to Charlotte, North Carolina, did consulting for 2 years there at Ernst & Young, and saw two companies on the West Coast that I'm sure a lot of listeners heard of in the past. It was Washio and Rinse. Right,
big names.
They had raised $30 million to go after the $45 billion laundry and dry cleaning industry in the U.S. And I sat there and I watched that happen, and I thought, I hate that. I don't like the underlying business model. It's Uber for laundry. I think us as consumers, we have clothes we can wear tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. It's not so much about speed and the Uberization of it. It's more about convenience. People just don't want to do it. And when they do send it out, they want it to come back at a high level of quality. And so I thought, I'm going to hate myself if I turn 30, 40, 50 years old and just don't go after this with everything that I've got. So I quit my job at EY and started 2U Laundry in January of 2016, which was a tech-enabled pickup and delivery, residential pickup and delivery business that started here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's just evolved since. I mean, there's been tons of iterations and learnings. I think doing the business in college is a lot different than in a city of 2.5 million people. It's a much different scale and challenges. Right. So we had a lot of ups and downs and, learnings, throughout that journey that, I'd be happy to share. Or if you have, another direction you want me to go to, happy to go either way.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see how that developed, and then where LaundroLab finally fits into the picture. Was that closer to around COVID time, or how did that evolve? How did everything evolve together? Because it's an interesting business model.
Yep. Yeah. So I'll connect the dots. So LaundroLab was as a result of COVID, but how we even got to that point. So when we had launched 2U in 2016, we thought it was going to be millennials, busy professionals, bankers, consultants, et cetera, using it. And very quickly were proven wrong. It was 75% ish plus dual income families with kids, predominantly women, ages 35 to 43, 2 kids. The last thing that family wants to do when they get home from work is more work. They're using grocery delivery. Someone comes and cuts the grass, and laundry was that never-ending pain point that they were constantly doing, especially with active families and kids. And so that took off in Charlotte. We had these moms and parents posting in Facebook groups, hey, you got to check this out. It's the hack of the year. Get your time back. And it just took off. We grew to, I think it was 85,000 in monthly revenue very quickly. And the way we were doing the cleaning was the dry cleaning we would bring to wholesale operators. Instead of the drop stores, we'd go right to the plants. They would facilitate all the dry cleaning for us. Really great to work with, professional staff of 15 plus, good process and good technology. On the laundry side, as a lot of people know, you're either doing laundry at home or you're going to a laundromat. There's not really this like in-between service, at least not outside of New York, Chicago, those major metros.
Right.
And at least not a highly used one. I mean, dry cleaners would offer it, a few places would offer, drop off, but for the most part, families are doing it at home or at a laundromat. And so we didn't really have the same wholesale supply chain that we did on the dry cleaning side. So we would work with, mom and pop coin laundromat owners to clean all the volume for us. And the issue that we ran into eventually was Washio goes out of business after raising $20 million to go do this, Uber for laundry model.
Right.
And we wanted to learn from that. We had reasons we thought they would fail, why it was different than what we were doing, but we wanted to hear it from them directly. So we called the founders of Washio. We talked to their big investors, and they'd shared, here's what went well, here's what went wrong. It was really, really awesome experience to see that they were willing to do that and spend that time with us. And the two things that they shared that jumped out to us was the on-demand model just doesn't make sense. You're not going to make money without having to charge customers an arm and a leg to do it, because it's, the driver to Bob's house, Bob's to a dry cleaner, then to a laundromat. Cleaning happens over some period of time. Then driver goes back to the dry cleaner, back to the laundromat, back to Bob's house. It's just way more logistical steps than food delivery or ride sharing is. And so you can't Uberize it. You can't do this gig approach to pick up and deliver. You need to do a FedEx or UPS route-based approach where you go into Bob's neighborhood and you can pick up 40 orders all at once, way more efficient, route density, go back to the facilities then. So we felt validated there. Washio said they were losing. It was like negative 28% gross margins on their orders. We were positive, 30 plus, and we're nowhere near scale. Didn't own our own stores, and we're already in a decent spot. Still thin, but right side is zero and headed in the right direction. The second thing that caused us to course correct was they said the quality control on the wash, dry, fold side of the business, they just couldn't figure out. And the reason being was that those dry cleaning wholesale operators, they're operators. They're in there every day. They've managed teams of people. They're used to tech and process. And what Washio had learned the hard way, they just raised all that money, went to Boston, DC, Chicago, et cetera. And they had 6 or 7 kind of 1,500 to 2,000 square foot laundromat partners in each city. So there's 40, 50 of them across the country. And not all operators were this way, but a lot of them, hadn't managed a team of, more than a small handful. And now they're managing 15 or so employees. They weren't using a ton of technology at the time. And now Washio is saying you have to use all this technology. And then laundromats aren't really designed for this much volume. They were bringing thousands and thousands of pounds a day, but it's a 1,500 square foot place. There's just not a lot of infrastructure and space to do it. And so they ended up having a huge quality control issue, lots of orders going missing, yours clothes getting mixed with mine, clothes getting damaged. So that coupled with the margins, they shut it down. And the reason I share all of that is it was very pivotal for our story. We were about to go launch Raleigh, a second city. And instead we said, we need to nail it in Charlotte. Let's not get too in front of our skis. Let's be disciplined and kind of really perfect this in Charlotte. And what we noticed was, majority of laundromats revenues generated on the weekends, Monday through Friday. A lot of the equipment's just kind of sitting there and not as utilized as it could be. And so we went back to the owners and said, hey, look, you don't want to be here managing a bunch of people. You just, you want the additional revenue though. Why don't we hire our own teams to come into your store and we'll rent out your equipment basically. And, you're happy for more revenue. We're happy with the control without having to buy a store, and customers get a better experience. So we did that for about 10 months. Quality shoots up, costs, we cut a little bit, we're all high-fiving. Hey, I think we figured out a good model here. Raised some money from investors in 2017, launched Atlanta in January of 18. At this point, we have 4 laundromats in Charlotte that we're working with, and that starts to create a new hurdle and challenges. Some stores are 1,500 square feet, some are 4, some have 20-year-old equipment, some have new. Some have owners that love what we're doing. Others are like, hey, your team's using my bathroom too much. I got to charge you for toilet paper. And, they're even though we're bringing
right.
additional,
all those things, right?
All this stuff. And so we thought, all right, we need to vertically integrate. We have to own our own stores. We have to build these bigger facilities, different machine mix, a lot of, stuff that was specific to the pickup and delivery component. But we're still not bankable. We're spending money on technology. The bank doesn't want to finance us. We don't want to use investor money to build these. How do we build one? And that's when we just have a stroke of luck and right timing. Electrolux, they're an $18 billion, equipment manufacturer. Their North American headquarters happens to be in Charlotte. And we started a relationship with them, and they come in and are like, look, you guys have $2.5 million worth of pickup and delivery volume. You should build your own stores. We're like, we're glad you said that. We'd love to do it. We just need a finance partner. And so they were willing to kind of take a bet on us, helped us finance our first store where banks wouldn't. And so we built a 6,300 square foot. It was a former McDonald's facility here in Charlotte that was going to be open to the public 7 days a week. But then Monday through Friday, we'd shut down half of the store to process all the pickup and delivery volume.
Oh, wow. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that was our getting into the brick and mortar business, and we loved it. We weren't sure what to expect on the walk-in side because we'd never done it before, at least not in this business specifically. And people flocked to it. We built this beautiful store, clean, safe, tons of cameras, fully attended, amenities, kids play area, lounge area, just all this stuff. And people flocked to it. And we thought, okay, wow, we were kind of just doing this for the 2U pickup and delivery piece, but hey, this whole other revenue stream from a customer that might not ever use 2U now can come to the same equipment, and now we're cleaning 2 different customer bases out of the same asset base. This is amazing. So we're like, how do we do more of these? We get under contract on a 10,000 square foot store in Atlanta. We raised more money from investors, launched Raleigh in January of 2020. And that brings us to COVID-19 and where LaundroLab starts to come into the story. Our board of directors had just incredible foresight. They said in mid-January, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And if we look at where it originated, in East Asia, this is going to be at least an 8-month thing. They're 8 months into it and they're still locked down. They're still shut down. So when it gets here, it's going to be at least 8 months. And they called that in January when I try to myself in January. I was like, it's over there. It's in Europe. It's in Asia. It's not here yet. Let's just keep kind of business as usual. And they thought, no, dry cleaning is going to go to zero. People aren't going to go into the offices. So, expect that business to completely tank for a few months. We don't know what pickup and delivery laundry is going to do. Maybe people are at home now. They don't need the service. Who knows? That could get hit as well. Laundromats, we're not sure. Did they get shut down? We just weren't sure what was going to happen. And so their advice was, this is going to become a cash preservation game. Shut any business down that's not profitable. That Raleigh, for example, we just launched. It was going to take 8 to 12 months to get profitable. So shut Raleigh down. We're about to build a building in Atlanta. Pulled out of that contract. Said we don't want to spend money on a building if there's risk. A lot more risk than we expected. And sure enough, March comes, March 2020. Businesses shut down. Food, fitness, most of retail is down 20, 30+%. And the board at that point gave us, even more advice. It was good advice. It was, you have this once in a multi-century opportunity to double down on the parts of your business that were working, shy away from the ones that weren't, really reset and recalibrate. And so we did just that. Do we build software for laundromats and dry cleaners? Do we use our fleet of vehicles and delivery technology that we've built to pick up and deliver other things? Do we build more stores? Do we franchise? So we looked at it all. And the 2 themes that we kept coming back to were, this laundromat performs incredibly well. Even in COVID, it was deemed essential in all 50 states. We grew 22% for the first 6 months of COVID when most retail was down. We need to build more laundromats. These are a great business, but they're expensive. Equipment's a lot. There's a lot of plumbing, electrical improvements. How do we build a lot of these fast was a thing we needed to figure out. And then the second theme was, there's a lot of hourly labor that we have with this business. There's delivery drivers, there's front of the house attendants, back of the house processors. how do we break up some of the labor headache that comes with it as well? And that's where franchising came in, is, hey, we could bring partners on that have capital to build their stores. We can provide bulk purchasing power with vendors of all sorts, labor, et cetera, for the building of the stores. So that's the value that we can provide: site selection, data-driven site selection, branding, $4 million of tech that we had built at that point. But the big kicker was, we have this whole pickup and delivery business. We could just keep bringing them all the volume, another 300,000 to 500,000 per store in revenue a year. That's a huge value add for a franchisee, and it solves our labor problem. We're managing the drivers, the customer acquisition, the customer care. They just have to manage as soon as the bags cross into their stores. They just have to clean more clothes, just like McDonald's has to make more burgers when they have an on-demand delivery order that comes from Postmates or Uber Eats. Like, okay, we could do something similar here. And so we started exploring it, talked to all these franchisors, the founders of Great Clips, Sport Clips, all these amazing franchise brands. They're like, do this, don't do that. Here's how you should structure your business. And we launched LaundroLab in March of 2021. Mm-hmm. And the idea was exactly what I just shared: is hey, we'll franchise the four-wall business, and we'll provide all sorts of support with 2U and everything else to create value. Right. And our goal last year was to sell 17 licenses, and we ended up selling 38 last year. We've sold a total of 99 at this point, or looking for lucky number 100 right now.
Right.
Got 3 stores open, 5 more opening by the end of the year, and then should open 21 stores plus next year.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, it's been a fascinating journey, and all the different, just the evolution of this business, and actually several businesses, and just the iteration. So thanks for bringing me up to speed on that. Are you surprised at the growth of the LaundroLab brand concept? Again, like you said, I read somewhere maybe a month ago that the goal was 100 licenses by the end of the year. And as you say, you're at 99. So it looks like you're going to make it. But yeah, I mean, that sounds like incredibly quick growth to me. Is that correct? And are you surprised by that at all?
Totally surprised. I mean, it's for a franchise brand, the first year they usually do, a couple licenses. They sell 2 or 3, and then the year after, maybe 10 to 20, and then 30, 40. And to be at a spot where we've almost sold 100 in less than 2 years, but almost 18 months at this point, we're shocked by it. I think people love the potentially passive nature of it's just the LaundroLab piece, and they love the 2U piece layered on top. We're attracting really amazing operators into the space, which we're happy about as well. I mean, we've got a franchisee that owns 57 McDonald's. He's coming in and building 10 stores with us. We've got another 13-unit McDonald's owner, 11-unit Planet Fitness franchisee coming in. So we're bringing a lot of really good operators, that have teams, that have multi-unit operational experience into the space, and that's what I think we're really excited about.
Well, Alex, what's behind that? I mean, from a franchisee's perspective, what are the main advantages of the LaundroLab model that's growing this concept?
Yep. So I think I break it into kind of 3 categories. The first one is just being the bulk purchasing power and just shared knowledge that we have. And that's kind of into one bucket, is that the group, the strength of the group, I guess. So that comes as in the form of discounts, but also all that knowledge transfer, site selection, training materials, design elements, all the stuff that goes into I think the table stakes of any franchise brand has to have is, McDonald's can get you meat for way cheaper. They can get you equipment for way cheaper. They can help with site selection. They can help with the brand, the menu, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the table stakes bucket for me, is we have to have at least that at a minimum. The second big piece is we've invested $4 million into technology, pickup and delivery, but also how do you facilitate thousands of pounds being cleaned a day by 15-ish different people, different preferences are had across the board. How do you do that in a way that's profitable and maintains quality at the same time? And so we've created a ton of gamification in our technology, where our sorter, our folder, it's still work, of course, but they're also incentivized with rewards. How fast they go, but also maintaining quality. They have to take pictures, and the pictures have to match, what a bag should look like and what a fold should look like when it's done. And so there's this kind of belt and suspenders approach to speed, but also having quality. And so all that technology is another, I think, big reason why franchisees are attracted to working with us. And then I think the last and the biggest bucket is, again, the additional revenue stream. Franchising is all about what are you doing for me lately, right? It's a laundromat, a typical laundromat, once it's open, a lot of it's kind of set it and forget it. Of course, there's machine maintenance. And if you are attended, you've got staff that you have to maintain. Other than that, kind of smooth sailing a little bit of marketing here and there. But, in year 5, what's the value of a franchise? And that's where 2U answers that question for us of what are you doing for me lately? And the answer is we're bringing you $500,000 a year in revenue every year, pickup and delivery. You don't have to go out and acquire it. You don't have to go out and, manage vehicles, drivers, this whole other additional layer of complexity. Customer support when they're calling to complain about the stain you couldn't get out or the shirt that wasn't folded how they wanted. We interface that. We then work with you. You say, hey, this past month, Bob, you had 10 complaints, 60% of them were folding related. Let's send a trainer in to come retrain your staff on all the folding process. And so that's the value. That's the value over time is the additional revenue and the technology. And then again, upfront the strengths of the group.
Right. Well, I've noticed that you mentioned 3 core values that are cited actually on your website for the LaundroLab model. And that's accountability, community, and excellence. And I was wondering if you could take me through those and maybe provide some examples of what exactly that means. Maybe just elaborate on those 3 core values of the franchise model, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dan and I, when we started, so I was at Ernst & Young before, and I remember I drank the Kool-Aid during orientation, and I loved all the values of the business. And I remember thinking, I think at the time it was Vision 2020, and it was building a better working world. So even now, 10 years later, I remember it. And I was on my first engagement. Something came up where it was relevant to talk about, and I remember asking my senior manager at the time, "Hey, what do you think about the big EY's big mission and vision right now, and how it ties into what we're doing?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I was building a better working world. And at that point, I realized, I drank the Kool-Aid, and I think this is one of those things people don't talk about. 6 months after you go through orientation, it's kind of just it's part of the check the box type of thing. And again, I loved EY. I don't mean to it was just that one individual that I think wasn't super up to speed on it. And I told myself at that point, if we ever build a company and there's core values, I'm going to make them simple, easy to remember, and something worthwhile to talk about. And so Dan and I went in and said, okay, this should be short, 3 or less, easy to remember, but impactful. 3, really strong and things that are relatable that you can remember. And so accountability, community excellence, acronym is ACE. You can remember ACE. It's one of these 3 letters. It's a word that has one of these 3 starting letters. And for us, it mattered so much because accountability, I think, is so important to building a good business, doing right by customers, right by your employees. And I think a lot of people view accountability as conflict. They don't want to address the issue that Bob might have had, or Bob's store, or Bob's team, or Bob himself, because I don't want to confront him. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward now, and I think, again, it's mistakenly labeled as conflict when it should be accountability, as long as your intentions are good. If your intentions are, we want to be excellent, and so it ties into our excellence one, then it's okay to call Bob out. We're just trying to help each other out and make each other better. And so our caveat with accountability is, hey, healthy confrontation. As long as you're not being an asshole, you can confront people and have those candid conversations. So that's accountability to us. Community, I wish I could say that this was pre-designed, premeditated. We knew community was always going to be at our core, but it wasn't until we built that first store that I shared earlier that this really jumped out at me. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, was fortunate enough to have been born into a family that food, the next meal on our table wasn't a question. Having access to laundry equipment was never a question. But a pretty good upbringing in life. And we built this store, and during our grand opening, Electrolux gave us a number of appliances to give away, promotional things for the grand opening. And I remember this one woman won a air purifier, and she was so excited, putting it over her head, jumping around, dancing. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And she goes and puts it in her car, and she comes back to me and just sobbing, waterworks.
Wow. Yeah.
Latches on to me. I thought someone took the air purifier, or she got the something she didn't want, or something else. I was like, what happened? Are you okay? And as she collected herself, she's like, no, I just want to thank you guys. No one ever builds anything nice for us. And I start crying because I just like those word choice stuck out to me. She pointed to businesses across the street, bars on the window, trash in the parking lot. There's a public bus station right there. And it really hit me that there's a whole other part of the population that lives a completely different life than I did growing up, that were less lucky, fortunate, made mistakes, whatever it was that put them in that predicament. It's still not great. And realizing that something as simple as a laundromat made this woman's day and made her feel like this is something I can be proud of and come to and feel like a human being instead of a second-class citizen.
Right. Making that difference. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so community at that point stuck. From that moment, we didn't have our core values at that time. And so that was the moment when it was like, all right, community's got to be at what we're doing. We spend a little bit more to build nicer stores, updated stores, refreshed stores. You're going to spend more, but it'll pay itself back 10 times over because that customer base is incredibly loyal. They appreciate you. It's a mutual respect that you have. Of course, you're always going to get a few bad apples that come in and cause a ruckus, but the majority are incredibly appreciative, great people that, they see the attention and the detail that you put in, and they want to build a sense of community at your stores. And so that's hugely important to us. And in small things, you have to, at the end of the day, you're running a profitable business. You have to do well as from a financial perspective, first and foremost, so that you can continue to reinvest and build more of these in the community. And then the last one is excellence. If we're going to do something, we might as well be really damn good at it. And so we always hold ourselves, and this is where accountability comes in, accountable to excellence. And so if Dan and I have a meeting, if Dan's my business partner, if we're looking at a site in Atlanta or whatever it may be, we are always debriefing on what could have been better there. What did we miss? What data did we not have available that we should have? What interaction, what thing did I say that I could have said more clearly? Constantly just that growth mindset of better, 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 better. How do we become excellent?
Right. Perfect. Well, hey, what types of requirements are required for a prospective franchisee? What requirements must they meet to be a LaundroLab franchisee?
Yep. So a lot of it, as laundromats can be expensive to build, mm-hmm. and you have to buy the equipment and in many cases personally guaranteed various loans. And so we look for someone that has a really good balance sheet, personal financial statement. We're looking for $500,000 plus in liquidity. I believe I should know this like the back of my hand, but Dan does all the sales. $2 million, I believe, in net worth with $500,000 in liquidity. So we set a higher bar just because we want to make sure that someone's coming into this. This isn't going to be life or death. We want to have someone that has the financial backing to be able to do this and to do it well. So that's from a finance perspective, that's a big piece. More or just as important is the type of person. We go through a mutual interview process. They're vetting us, we're vetting them. We spend multiple calls together, and then finally an in-person where it's a dinner the night before. We're getting to know what about you as an individual, your family, where are you from, what are your hobbies, passions, interests, etc. And then that next day they see everything, the machines, the technology. They meet the entire team that we've built out to support them, and everyone again is kind of interviewing both ways. Our team is, hey, when they leave, when the prospective candidates leave, we're all talking. Would you like to work with? Could you see yourself working with Bob for 10 years? Because this is a 10-year commitment at a minimum. And so it's a marriage, and we treat it that way, and make sure that everyone that we're bringing in is going to provide value to the network, to the franchise system. Because that's again the part of the value of people coming in is they're working with other incredibly sharp, incredibly sophisticated individuals. And vice versa, they're interviewing us. Do these guys know what they're talking about? Are they going to provide me value? Are they going to deliver on the things that they said they were going to do? And so that looks like the process and the requirements that we have on the sales sales side.
Well, hey, as I'm sure you know, the franchise model hasn't worked particularly well in the laundromat industry, at least in the past. What's different now, and why do you think this concept will be successful where maybe others have failed in the past?
Yep, I think in two buckets. The one is just, I think, the advent of technology getting to a point. I talked to a few really large scale laundromat operators, and that some of the groups that tried to go public in the past was that, hey, there's kind of diseconomies of scale the bigger you get. And this is a corporate chain instead of a franchise, but the bigger you get, there's diseconomies of scale. All these overhead, regional managers, national manager, Brinks trucks going to all these locations versus if you're one operator that owns 3 or 4, semi close by in a given market, you get local economies of scale instead of diseconomies of scale. You can have one manager manage all 4 buildings. You can have that one manager grab all the cash, and you don't need a regional manager. You actually you unlock benefits on a small scale, hyper-local scale. And so Part of it is, I think, because we're not going national, we're not corporately owning all these stores and having all that overhead. We get to partner with individual small business owners, mom and pop owners, just like what exists today. And so they're getting that local economies of scale by building their stores in a market. The technology piece is what allows, I think, the ability to manage people, manage multiple stores, health of machines, health of stores a lot more effectively for a franchisee than you could in the past. Before, when it was all done paper and having to run from each store to collect all the quarters, it just added a lot more time versus digital payments now. Hiring and managing people is a lot easier. And a lot of the tech, again, that we've built specifically for the laundromat industry supports a lot of that. So I think that's one bucket. The main driver, though, is that you need to have the whole, what are you doing for me lately? I think what I said earlier, as far as additional revenue that we can provide through the 2U pickup and delivery piece. I think that's really the key unlock and differentiator between what we're doing and what's been done in the past.
Right. Very good. Very good. What can a franchisor do for a laundromat owner, operator that maybe a distributor can't do?
Yep. And so
I don't know if that's a fair question or not, but
totally fair. I think, in any business, whether it's laundromats or XYZ widget or, computer processing, equipment, whatever it may be, there's always different incentives, right? Everyone's got different motives and incentives that they're going after. And so we work with all, distributors nationwide for all of our franchisees, every distributor in every state and region we're working with. And, there is a lot of a partnership that happens. I think the difference between a franchisor and a distributor is just the incentives. Again, at the end of the day, a distributor is wanting to sell equipment, is wanting to service that equipment, and get stores open. We want to get stores open as well, and so we're aligned on that piece. The slight difference is that we have a vested interest in this franchisee over 10 plus years, where we need every week the store to be performing well, and we're in there with marketing and training. Whereas the distributors might say, hey, let's get the equipment in and I'll be here for service. But outside of that, they're running a business. They have to focus on their core business, which is selling and servicing equipment. Our core business is making sure that these operators have a hand to hold every step of the way outside, beyond the installation and service of the equipment. And so that's a big differentiator, but we again overlap in a lot of ways. And we want to get a lot of stores open. We want to buy equipment from them. We want to put it in our franchisee stores, and we want them to be serviced. And so there's a lot of overlap. Franchising just adds an additional layer of, hey, we need to make sure this is the right site. We need to make sure you have staffing model, machine mix, 2U volume, tech, all that piece that gets rolled in.
Right. Those are great points and great differentiators. Absolutely. Well, hey, Alex, in general, what's the biggest misconception that you hear about laundromat franchises? If you've heard any, I don't know.
Yeah, no, of course. I think it is not taboo, but it's hey, this has been tried. It hasn't worked. Kind of, especially from folks that have been in the industry for a while, and they have valid reasons to believe that and feel that way. And so I think my response is typically like, I agree. If we weren't providing value beyond year 2, we shouldn't be doing it. What's the point? It's going to be a house of cards that falls down, and your franchisees get upset. They don't build their second store, their third store. We have to push ourselves as a franchisor to continue to provide value constantly. Otherwise, why would you do it? And so that's my response usually is, hey, we need to make sure that we're building innovative technology solutions that make your life as an operator easier. If you're in there 15 hours a week now, can we get it down to 5 through technology? That's a value add. If you're dealing with all these quarter counting and other things, can we go digital but save you money even if there's a processing fee? I don't know. Is that possible? Can we provide other revenue streams for you? Commercial accounts, pickup and delivery accounts. And so, constantly pushing that envelope of, again, how do we be excellent and how do we provide value constantly?
Hey, shifting gears a little bit to residential pickup and delivery, because again, that was kind of where the business started. And again, as you mentioned, it's a big differentiator for the LaundroLab model as well, that piece, that pickup and delivery piece. Do you see that segment of the laundromat industry growing, especially as the economy starts to tighten?
Yeah, I think it is. And so a couple of reasons why. One is Procter & Gamble, largest laundry brand in the world with Tide and Gain and the other brands that they have. I was very close with the CEO of Tide Cleaners, who managed their services business, not Tide the brand, but their dry cleaners, their laundromat concepts they're testing out, their university product, Tide University, And I asked, why is P&G doing this? Why are they getting into dry cleaning and laundromats? And, what is it? And their response was, and this kind of made it click for me. I already believed in the space and where I was going, but this really validated it, was P&G is this, Tide especially is a multi-billion-dollar brand. We own, I think it's 90+% market share of detergents. It's insane how much they own of it. And they're like, our growth as a brand is not going to be more shelf space or more market share. Every incremental dollar we spend on marketing, we're not going to get much more out of this space. Their sole belief is that the biggest growth opportunity for laundry in general and for their brands especially is what they call out-of-home laundry. And that is laundromats, and that is pickup and delivery, wash, dry, fold. So how do they capture everything? And so when you hear that, I don't think it doesn't cannibalize existing laundromats at all. It's purely additive. It's getting a customer base that would not step foot in a laundromat typically because they have a washer and dryer, who want to use this purely out of convenience and to save time. And so when you ask about the economy, it's a question that we get asked a lot too, is how impacted are you? I think the upper class, upper and upper middle classes are less impacted by recessions than the lower middle classes are. And those families are going to continue to remain busy. They're going to continue to not want to cut their grass, shop for their groceries, go to the store. And they're going to continue to use Amazon. I do think we're impacted, just not to a detrimental degree. I think we lose our bottom 20% of customers that are like, look, we got to trim a little bit the household budget. One of this husband or wife lost their job, and we're going to do our laundry on our own for a while. But I think the majority of the customer base stays.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Hey, what are some common mistakes that operators need to avoid with their pickup and delivery operations? I mean, you've been doing this for several years now. So what are some common things that you see? Maybe you've done them yourself, but what are some common mistakes some pitfalls to avoid?
Yep. So I don't think they charge enough. You have to make sure you're charging enough to cover your costs and realize the value of the service that you're providing. Again, route-based delivery versus on-demand is, I think, a must. You cannot afford, and your customers are not going to. I see a lot of these businesses now doing integrations with Uber Eats and Postmates and the other gig deliveries, and they're passing that cost through to the customer, which it doesn't really impact their margin. But the analogy that I use is when I go to use a Postmates or a DoorDash, and the burger that I'm going to get or whatever is $10, and then the delivery fee is also $10, and I've now doubled the cost of this. It's just, that's, to me, is not sustainable. It has use cases where maybe you're feeling exceptionally lazy, or you whatever it may be. There's something's going on where you just can't. You got an injury and you can't go anywhere, and you don't want to cook, and so there's instances, but. Is it a thing that people would change their behavior to do constantly? And I don't think so. I'm not using Postmates every day and paying a $10 delivery fee. And I think the same thing is true with laundry. You have to change people's behavior. And by doubling the cost of what they would expect, it's just too high of a barrier. So I think we as operators have to continually push the limit of how do we deliver a high quality product at a reasonable price. And so I think you have to do route-based versus on-demand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else? Any other pickup and delivery advice, strategies, tips, nuggets to share?
We got delivery. We've got price.
I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think the last thing I guess I would say is just processing, how you process the clothes. And again, just like delivery, finding the most efficient way to do it. And so specialization we found to work really well. The gamification of the apps and of what folks are doing is also really helpful.
Very good. Well, hey, as I mentioned at the outside, you are one of the newest members of the CLA's board of directors. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Please, can you share what interested you in serving on the board?
Yep. So I clearly can't stay away from the industry. Did it in college. Thought I was done. Came back and now trying two different concepts here. And I just am fascinated by it. It's a huge industry. It's a massive basic human need, right? Like we all have to have clean clothes. I mean, so I think one of the first decisions we all make every day, whether it's subconscious or conscious, what am I going to wear today? What do I look the best in, feel the best in, et cetera? And so the industry as a whole, I just love and want to be a part of it. And I think, how can I help, shape the direction we're headed? How do I create resources and value for incoming operators, whether they're franchisees or not? It's an amazing industry, and I think it is ready for a little bit of not necessarily innovation, but kind of, a facelift, if you will. Is just, it's ready to be brought into, modern era. And I think being a part of that would be a lot of fun and
Well,
provide value and hopefully learn in the process of doing it, learn from the legacy operators as well.
do you have any specific goals for the association as well as for the industry in general during your term on the board?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I really want to do is, and this goes almost back to that story I shared about the customer who had an emotional experience at our grand opening, was putting that end customer in mind. In this case, the CLA's customers in my mind are new operators, distributors and manufacturers to a degree. But I think really, how do you, it's the industry as a whole, and who are the industry's customers? They're laundromat operators. And so championing all of the operators and again, using that group to make sure that the CLA is providing the most value that it possibly can to that group. And so surveying them, talking to them, listening, hey, what is your biggest pain point as an operator? Is it financing? Is it site selection data? And making sure that you nail the right spot. Is it customer acquisition? Is it technology? What are those things? And so I have opinions and assumptions on what I think the answers are going to be, but until we talk to and we're actually going through the exercise now of, hey, let's go talk to as many operators as we can to see what it is exactly that they want. It might turn out they all want consulting. That might be what it is. All right, we need to build a consulting arm. Then CLA needs to have an offering there, just like the Dave Menzies of the world, the Williford, anyone else that's in the industry doing it now. If that's what people want, we need to be doing it. If it's technology, we need to be doing it. If it within reason, but that's my hope, is to really champion a customer-centric, obsessed value proposition. How do we meet people where they are and deliver what they say what they're telling us they need?
Right. Well, as part of some of that, I guess, initial research that you're doing, what are some of the leading issues for laundromat owners today, and what are the top concerns that you're hearing from them across the country?
Yep. So we actually just sent the survey out about a week ago, and I think I saw some of the initial responses. So a lot of existing operators are interested in, how do we use the association to get discounts on certain supplies that we need, equipment replacement pieces, et cetera. Now can we execute on that and deliver it is another question to be determined. But, I think people are interested in, inflation, everything's costing a lot more. How do we combat some of the increase in costs? I think other big pieces are, kind of a mastermind group. People want to share learnings more often in a more structured way than I think there is today. The forums, I think, are great, on social media, but can there be a monthly, Zoom meeting or, local groups in the various cities or hubs across the country meeting up and just sharing best practices with each other and lessons learned, and basically getting the benefit of a franchise system organically through, that network.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's ranked really high. Another interesting one has been, and this makes complete sense to me as well, is site selection is so important. As you put that equipment in, it is expensive to move, it's expensive to upfit those locations. You got one bullet in the gun, and you better make sure it's right. And so there's been a lot of emphasis on, hey, I have a good gut for it. I've had successful stores, I've had bad stores, but there's so much data available now. There's so much more out there than there ever was, 5 years prior, even from now. And can the CLA be a massive resource for providing that data, crunching the data, helping us find the most successful locations, so that out of the gate, that one shot that I have a higher chance of hitting. And so that's a big one. Another one is kind of like professional services. So if you have a lawyer because you're negotiating a lease, can you leverage a CLA hired attorney to do some of that? And that's a value add that you get as a member, et cetera. So there's lots of ideas being thrown out, and some are bubbling to the top more than others. And I'm excited about where it's headed.
Yeah. That's great stuff. Now, personally, what are your business goals for the remainder of the year into 2023 and beyond? What are you shooting for?
Yep. So into next year, we would love to have, how many stores? We bought 30 stores open by the end of next year total. That's really what we're laser focused on, is, hey, we've sold a lot of these. That's one part of this, but an even bigger part is we need to execute. We need to deliver. We need to open the stores in the time that us and our franchisees are expecting. We need to open them at the cost they're expecting, at the level of quality that they're expecting. And so, we're candidly bringing on some more capital right now to go hire a pretty big team of experienced individuals in franchising, in laundry, to go provide that value and that support for our franchisees. So a lot for me personally is get those 30 stores open, continue to sell stores as well, layer 2U on top of those 30 stores, invest in technology, and hire the best possible team we can.
Very good. Last one for you, Alex, and I really appreciate your time today because I know you're busy and this has been fascinating for me. Just looking to the future, where do you see the biggest opportunities for laundromat operators going forward and why?
Yep. So I think it depends on the type of operator. If you're an operator that says, look, I love this for the lifestyle. I love that it's, there's not a ton of employees. There's no inventory. This is a great, mostly passive business for me. I think where those operators can double down on is experiment with technology tools, things that make it even more passive for you. And you can open a second and a third and be just as busy as you were with one, and figuring out ways to leverage a lot of the tools that are being built by Sense right now and other software manufacturers that are focused on the space, I think are going to provide a huge value to those operators that say, hey, this is the kind of lifestyle I want to have and this is what I want to do. For the operators that are just chomping at the bit, how do I squeeze every bit of revenue out of the store without jeopardizing the customer experience? I think that's where you look to pick up and delivery and commercial accounts. I mean, I think it's a huge market once you've tapped out or have a really good walk-in business. Build that 5,000 square foot, 6,000 square foot store, put 2,000 square feet in the back and turn that, that baby into a manufacturing plant in the back and leverage the same equipment you already have. And again, that's for the operator that wants to get in there 30, 40 hours a week, or if they're not hiring a store manager to do it and they've got 2 or 3 of them all, kicking out volume. I really think that's where the biggest opportunity is pick up and delivery and commercials accounts, gyms, yoga studios, salons, et cetera.
Perfect. Hey, Alex, that was everything I had. Is there anything maybe I didn't get out there that you'd like to talk about? Anything regarding franchising, pickup and delivery, laundromats, your journey in this? Anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you'd like to?
No, I think I have to plug a little bit if there's anyone listening that is interested in a franchise or knows someone who is. I mean, feel free to reach out. Emails Alex at laundrolabusa.com. If anyone's looking for work, if anyone listening wants to join what we're building and come join the team, we're also hiring a ton of folks right now. And if anyone just has questions, that email again, shoot me anything for any of the above. I'm happy to be a resource and to help anyone that's listening.
Awesome. Hey, Alex, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been great having you today.
Likewise. Thank you for having me, Bob.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on our podcast today. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to Planet Laundry at PlanetLaundry.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.